Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Go ahead.
Motion and a second, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Consent agenda, recommendation to approve the minutes of the September 24th, 2014 City Council meeting as presented.
I'll make a motion on the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Number 4, recommendation to approve decertification of tax increment financing district number 5-3, the Granary project, effective December 31st, 2014 for taxes payable in 2015. Questions on that at all? Bob?
Paul, I'm hoping that you can answer this question. It says that it's for taxes payable in 2015. Does that mean that the city will actually be receiving money that will go into the general levy for that period of time?
Absolutely.
Okay. Does that have any impact at all on the budget or the levy or the proposal that we had passed previously?
It does. No, I'm glad you brought that up because it does affect next year's taxation. So I was going to explain that a little bit more in my report of the explanation of the proposed 2015 levy, but I can hit part of it now at least. That yes, it affects that. So as that moving target of are we raising taxes by 18%? It will go down because of this, because this will be more of a shift toward commercial taxation than away from residential.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Other questions at all? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2014-17.
Moved.
I'll second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Amending council pay, ordinance number 331. Recommendation to approve ordinance number 331, amending the pay for city council members. This is the one I think we talked about for a couple of years already.
yeah. And if I may just...
Yep, go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically with this, back in December, I had proposed a resolution for you and you approved unanimously. It has to be done before the next election. Of basically adjusting council pay that would go into effect after the year after the election, so 2015. Basically went back in time and grabbed as the resolution had stated, the exact amount for 3 months average for the mayor's pay and then 3 years, excuse me. 3 years for the mayor's pay and then 3 years for all of the council members' pay. And those numbers came to some pretty exact amounts. For the mayor, $436.81, and for council members, $296.18. As staff, we wrote an email, I think, a little bit earlier this week to you to say, maybe you want to just look at rounding those up. I think the suggestion was either 440 and 300, at least as the two suggestions to it, but we wrote the ordinance exactly as you would pass the resolution, so it all depends on... Our recommendation as staff is to make it easier. A couple of the reasons, like I said to the press with this, was the idea that one, it creates greater efficiency for staff. We're not looking at council time cards anymore, and two, a greater fairness for council itself, because you do more than just go to this meeting as a part of your monthly duties. You're on call 24/7. So the idea of rounding it up is fair, especially when you're talking change. But you can round it up certainly more than that if you think it's appropriate.
So we were gonna round it to 450 for the mayor and 300. That would be $4 for the council or less than that, and it would be $14 for the mayor. Is what that would be. I don't know, I'm for it.
Again, because of the simplicity, because of making it easier on staff so we don't spend so much time, I think it makes sense. And again, Fran, like you just said, using 450 and 300, again, I just think it makes it more simple for everyone.
Yeah.
Jan, anybody else? Otherwise, I guess I'm okay with simplifying it, but I would like to see it go to 435 and 295. I mean, we're asking all the other entities to make cuts, and now we're here gonna give it, yeah, it's only $14, but at 12 months, that comes up to $500, and we've asked other people to make cuts, and here we are, now wanna give ourselves a raise, so again, I'd like to see it at 435 and 295, it's below the average, or keep it as written in the ordinance. That's my say on it.
For my part, doesn't matter, none of us are doing this for the paycheck, so.
That's right.
I mean, it's
Actually,
$5 this way, $5 that way is.
actually, my pay is gonna go down.
Yeah, mine is too.
Yeah.
Well, I'll entertain a motion on either way, on either as written, or if somebody wants to change the language in the ordinance as what's written.
For simplicity, for Chris's sake, we need to keep it just a nice round number.
For us anyway,
Yeah,
because there's no FICA or anything. Ours is just a straight salary check, so, you know, she doesn't have to take all those deductions out of there or anything.
do you have a strong feeling one way or the other?
Well, I'm going like all the meetings and everything that I go to and everything. My average is way over 300, so I'm gonna actually take a cut, is what I'm going to take. So I'm going to, my idea is 450 and 300 is what my idea is.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that a motion.
And I'll second that.
So there's a motion and a second. Other discussion? And that would be to increase the mayor's pay to 450 and council to 300?
Yes.
Okay, other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay, recommendation to adopt resolution 2014-18, a resolution scheduling a public hearing and adoption of assessments for the South 50 reconstruction project. Paul?
Basically, standard resolution that we should be doing as a part of protocol before we have our assessment hearing for case of 50. And I believe it actually, sorry, Brian?
Go ahead, Paul.
I was just gonna say, I believe it actually came in under expected engineering budget initially, is that correct?
Initially did, I'm still figuring out the exact number right now. And I was just gonna say, in the last meeting, we had talked about doing it at the last meeting in October. As I looked a little closer at the process, they highly recommended that we have the council have a resolution to set a hearing. So because of that, we're just gonna push it back to the first meeting in November. Still gives us time to get it to council.
Bob?
So again, if I understand, and so that the public is clear, what we're doing tonight is basically just setting a hearing at which time everything will be explained, all the things will be made clear. The public will then at that point in time be able to gain information as far as what their individual assessments will be, how this will affect their taxes, that kind of stuff. That's what will happen at that meeting?
Yeah, exactly. And even before that, they'll receive a letter that will state exactly the amount that would go on to the assessment roll.
Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. This would be allowing us to set the meeting date. It allows us to publish it in the paper. And I think the paper, when we publish it, has a total amount, and then to the individual homeowners, each one gets mailed a letter with their individual assessment. And again, stating when the meeting is. and a number of other things related to the estimate.
Thank you.
Other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2014-18 as written.
Make that motion.
Second?
Motion and a second, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Public Works report, Mr. Heschen.
The share a chair. Okay, first, request to approve purchase of road salt from Hulicky Brothers for approximately $8,000. And the reason I say approximate is because when they load a truck, they load it to full capacity. If it were aluminum, there's more salt on it. If it's steel, there's less salt on it. Either way, we're getting full truckloads. So it'll be in that $8,000 range, and we have $8,000 and I think 40 left in the budget.
Is one truckload, is that about how much we ordered last year?
No, it'll be several loads.
It's okay, so we're gonna need several loads, but I guess I phrased the question poorly. What you're asking for us to approve, is that basically how much you ordered for last year?
Oh, no, we ordered more than that last year.
Okay, so,
This is not gonna be a year's worth unless we have a good year.
well, and that was gonna be my next question. Are you expecting to have a good year? Are you expecting prices to go down? Are you expecting prices to go up?
Good year, I don't know, I'm not a forecaster and the forecasters are commonly wrong. But the salt price has increased. There was a lot used last year. Supply is low, price is up. And through Hulicky Brothers, we're getting it for about $86 a ton through the state contract where we used to be on for a while. That's more like $115. So this is a good price. Ron Fuchs researches that all and does the ordering. And we switched to the state contract and back out of it, and now we're glad we're not in it. And this is a good price. We're thinking we should buy while we can because supplies are low.
Questions for Paul on the road salt? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, can I ask one more question?
Wow.
So, on your thing, it says that the budget balance is 8,040. Is that before we take out the 8,000 that you're asking for, or is that after you take out the
This is
8,000?
before.
Okay,
Spend $8,000, we'll have $40 left.
okay. And the reason I was asking, because if we had the extra money, if we know prices are gonna go up, and if we know that we're gonna use it, I was gonna recommend we buy more now. But if we don't have the budget for it, I'm not gonna do that. Thank you. I'll move that we buy the salt.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, also ask for the approval of the comprehensive water supply plan that we discussed at the last meeting. I did a little bit more research on it. I talked to a water circuit rider for the Rural Water Association, and he said he didn't really study the plan, to detail or understand exactly what it's all doing for us. But what he's saying is overall, you're really crazy not to have one. To know the capabilities of our system, how to plan for the future, how to make sure we have, fire flows at the right spot, how to incorporate a multi-million-dollar expansion that we're about to embark on with wells and treatment plant, how to design pipe sizes for new developments or redevelopment. You can easily waste $35,000 by a wrong educated guess. But it's important to have the plan. Also, I talked to Tom Montgomery, City of Hastings. He's been working there for over 30 years. He's been the director for 24. So he says that this is his third plan that he's going through, and that he said the plan really is a roadmap to guide us. The 5-year capital expense plan that goes with it is critical, and it's a capital expense plan that's studied a little more in detail than normal. planning ahead for, to see further ahead when you might need more tower capacity, need more storage. You don't want to find out on a whim. You need kind of a long-term forecast so you can plan for it. Our towers have good capacity in the north and south, the newer ones we built, plenty capacity. The one on the west side, I say, is still plenty capacity, but the health department wants us to have a lot more capacity than what I believe we should have. I believe more in having enough water supply pumping capacity so you don't have to have such huge storage. Point is, again, this is a plan to help guide us to further down the road whether we should build more capacity or not. Just one little part of it, you know, pipe size, fire flows, certain areas. It really is a comprehensive plan that needs to be reviewed probably every 10 years. Things change over 10 years. You get more load off of one side of the city over a certain set of pipes, and what was adequate is no longer adequate. So I think it's important. He says he strongly recommends it. With the plan comes a model to show how to serve a new or redevelopment, how to provide fire flow. Model finds the weak areas. Those were all his comments. So those are the only two people I consulted, but both of them strongly recommended it. And again, to repeat what I said last time, I was against it at first. Like, I don't need to spend $35,000 on a plan. I pretty much know what's going on, and we do what we can to save $100 here and $100 there. And so I was against it. I needed a lot of convincing to understand what it all does for us. And if you go back again to a multi-million-dollar water and water treatment, water wells, piping, treatment plant, communication system, you could easily waste $35,000 by making some wrong educated guesses. So in both of their opinions, you're money ahead by having it. Either plan or plan to fail.
Anybody offer you a suggestion on how to pay for it?
No, actually we talked, that was kind of critical, we thought, to get that together before this meeting, exactly how we're going to pay for it. And we didn't do that because the money is not in the budget.
Right.
You know, the money is in the water, it's in retained earnings. You know, the money's there, but it's not in the budget.
Bob?
I was just going to say, in water, is there a capital improvement plan type of fund? And that maybe the term itself is wrong, but is there that type of a fund? Because again, I agree with Paul, there isn't, it's not budgeted. We didn't anticipate this, so it's not budgeted. But at some point, we're going to have to build pipes or a water treatment plant or something. And when we do that, where's the funding going to come from? Well, grants, as we've talked about in the past, but it's likely going to come from some fund like a capital improvements fund. So my thought is, if there's those dollars in there already, I think again, Paul just said something about you can fail to plan or plan to fail, and I'm not willing to put the city of Cold Spring out there and run the risk of not being prepared when this happens. If you can tell me, Paul, that the money is out there in a capital improvements fund or something, I think we need to be doing this.
That's what I was looking for this meeting, to know how we were going to pay for it, so.
Yeah, it's not really in a capital improvement plan. We're pretty stingy with exactly putting in there what we need for next year, and this wasn't in the plan, so the money is not in the budget.
Correct, it's not in the budget, but I'm asking, is it in an account?
Oh yes, in the water fund easily. We've been building it up for a few years, expecting a nitrate treatment plant or another well. Well before the DNR took away wells 1 and 2 and reduced capacity on wells 3, 4, 5, and 6, and taking away the brewery wells. We already anticipated this, so we've been raising funds for a number of years.
Paul?
To give you an idea of where we certainly can take it from, is we budgeted this year $1.5 million for the water system, thinking that, you know, just as a spitball number to be able to kind of get us going in some way, shape, or form. We've spent $26,462 out of that, so we got to the tune of $1.4 million left within that capital expenditure to to fulfill that plan. And honestly, this came up in a phone conference, as I put in my report just last week, that, matter of fact, Chip mentioned it, saying that we're working, on the idea of a comprehensive water plan, and the officials that were on the phone conference were very pleased that we were going in that direction. So, could it come out of that capital expenditures? I mean, that's where it would come out of. And certainly as a part of that overall project, that's one of the major reasons why we're doing it. So I certainly think it could go in within there. It was also asked last meeting, whether or not then where would we get it on ongoing type of expenses. If you take a look at engineering fees, we budget $60,000 a year for engineering fees. We're over budget on that this year just due to a lot of unforeseen things with this water plan. So we expect it to even out certainly as we go forward in years to come. And I don't believe we altered that number that much in our 2015 budget for just that reason. But that's exactly where you would see when we have to go to Stan Tech and ask questions on the water system, that's the line it would come out of for engineering fees. But already with the entire budget, when you look at water fund, we got a $2 million budget. We have a balance of $1.7 million, so we still have an amazing amount left of this year's budget. Yeah.
Other questions for Paul? Otherwise, thoughts? Or I'll entertain a motion. Paul?
Just another comment. There's some ways I think we can cut down on the price. For instance, fire flow testing is an important part of it. To find out how much water volume and pressure is available in different areas of town. And to establish that, we'll use some fire flow testing that's already been done by private companies. We can give all that information to Stan Tech, and we can do some too, as we have in the past. Like, I wouldn't want to do it totally on our own. We'd have Stan Tech with their equipment out there do a fire flow test, and again, as we have a few years ago, we follow immediately with our staff and our equipment and got the same result. So then they don't have to do all the fire flow testing. We can do some of it, save some money, and again, all the tests that have already been done plug into the system. And maybe there's some other ways where we can cut down on the cost, but staff and I are willing to pitch in, do whatever we can to control cost.
Paul, you think those savings would be about 30,000 or so?
No, I don't think so.
I tried.
And if you look back at the budgets the past few years, like streets and parks, it's extremely close budgeting, where we're not padding the budget on anything, and then on the water fund, I'm $1.5 million off because we didn't drill wells or build a treatment plant this year. But just so you know, we watch it pretty close.
Other comments or?
What I'm wondering is, at our last time when we had a conversation about this, there were some concerns, and since the engineer people are here, I'm just wondering if anybody wants to address any questions to them specifically. Okay, then at this point, I would like to make the motion that we approve it, and it says in here at a cost of $35,500. Can I just change the wording just slightly, not to exceed? That way, if the city staff can actually save us some dollars, we can do that. But we don't know. I guess you can't save $30,000. At least that's what I've heard. But at least we can make it so that it's not to exceed the $35,500.
Is there a second? I'll second it just for discussion, I guess. Other discussion at all? Not? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So it fails on a 2-2 vote. Okay. Baseball park project update.
Well, I don't know if a lot of you have been by there just to kind of see what's going on, just that it's underway. So far, the project is going well. We haven't had any big stumbling blocks. So just real general, things are looking good.
Questions on baseball park update?
Looking pretty good, I think.
So far, yeah.
Looks nice. Looks nice.
It looks a lot better than the light pole we had on Main Street this morning. That's now gone. Somebody knocked over a light pole today on Main Street, kind of by a Dollar Outlet, the old Granite Community Bank. And luckily it just fell on the street, not on something else. And staff picked it up and got the wiring rewired so the other lights should work. And I didn't really check into it further what we're gonna do from here. At least we got that mess cleaned up. And I don't want to spend the money on another pole like this that we're gonna have for a year and a half. Either we're gonna go without, or I would say we buy a pole like we're going to have on Main Street in the future, which is probably what we have now in Granite Landing. That was the intent when we bought those in Granite Landing, that we'd carry that theme through. So I would much sooner have one odd duck on Main Street, totally different from the rest, for a year and a half than to buy the wrong pole. So I guess for now, I'm not asking for anything. I didn't get a chance to check into it.
Is it the corner or in the middle of the block or?
Kind of in the middle. Like
Okay.
if you're coming around the west side of the Granite Community Bank on the Main Street where the dollar stores off to the west side, that's where. And I guess there were some witnesses saw it was an SUV and didn't get a license plate number and they took off. So hopefully the police department learned more than I know about it. As of now, we don't know who did it.
Is it gonna make a difference? I suppose tonight we'll find out, right?
Tonight we'll find out. Check it on the way home.
All right. We'll walk down there and look.
Anything else, Paul? Okay, we'll move on to city engineer report. Brian,
Good evening, everyone.
good evening.
County Road 50, you probably noticed construction is wrapped up there. There's a couple minor things that have to be done yet, televising the sewer, those sort of things, but for all intents and purposes, it's done. And we have the assessment hearing scheduled for Monday, November 10th, the first meeting in November, and like we had talked, we'll get notices out for that. So, I guess any questions on County Road 50? Again, a big thanks to everybody on the project, the residents, the school, the general traveling public who put up with the inconvenience all summer. I think we have a real nice outcome from it.
Looks good.
Okay, Second Avenue crossing. I know the city, I saw a few communications going back and forth this week between the city attorney and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. They're just kind of working out the final details for the purchase of the property. Again, the same issues we had with trying to determine ownership. I think the railroad is running into the same issues there. It's a very convoluted corner of the world as to who owns what. So they're running it through their legal people and their land people right now, so that we can all get on the same page.
Jan?
Have we done any of that utility movement in anticipation?
We have not, but I was talking with Pete earlier in the week, and he's got it on the schedule,
Okay,
so that will be happening.
great.
Good.
I also need to, I also have been in contact with the Rocori Trail Board, and we're gonna plan to get on their next meeting just to get their approval to do the temporary crossing. What I've told them is what we'll do is we'll put out temporary signs for it. They have stop signs, stop ahead, just so that we comply with how the rest of the crossings are on the trail. The way I'm anticipating it is we can order those signs, put them on a temporary post, And then once we come to do the actual project, we can take those signs and put them on a permanent post, so it's not like we're wasting money. I also had said, well, if we need to do any sweeping because there's gravel gets on the trail where it shouldn't be come spring, or any damage we do to it beyond where we would repair or take it out with the project, obviously the city would take responsibility for that.
Questions for Second Avenue? Oh, okay. Red River Avenue.
All right, on the 6th, I believe that was last Monday, the downtown committee met with Jeff Martin again. He presented his next round of concepts for the downtown, a little more refined, as well as some additional areas. So they have a pretty good idea of what the downtown committee feels that they're looking for. And they've requested that and I think we'd mentioned last meeting as well, they'd like to do a joint council and planning meeting. The reason for the joint meeting would be to save money on Jeff coming up to present those things. Tentatively, we've talked lately about October 27th. It is the next council meeting, so it'd be 2 weeks from now. I think we moved it to I think that's a Monday that we had moved it to.
Yes.
So I got responses from a couple of folks, and the responses I did get were positive towards that date. So I figured tonight might be a good time to maybe make an official, or at least get a consensus if that would work for Jeff to present.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds like the consensus is October 27th will work, so I will let Jeff know. I'll let Nate Sauer on the downtown committee know, as well as the planning commission. We can start planning for it.
Any questions on Red River? Stormwater grants.
And I think the only update there is that the grant application has been submitted. Time will tell.
Cross our fingers. Anything else for questions for Brian? Jan?
I just have one comment. Step back on that comprehensive water plan. I know it didn't go through tonight. I think it's a great concept and I'm in favor of it, but I need more basis on how we're gonna pay for it.
I do too.
The dollar concept is the big thing for me, not just saying, oh, we've got money in this account, we've got money in that account. We've done a lot of expenditures here. We've got issues with our finances. I think it's justified. I just need to have a better plan in place before I'll be willing to approve it, so.
And I agree with Jan too. It wasn't because it's $35,000. I still didn't get enough information or what we can do, I didn't vote for it to rule it dead, but I just,
Right.
yeah, I need more time, and I feel like we do have some time. It's not an overnight thing, but again, it can't be a full-length thing, but I'm voting on it because of the information that I got and what I have to make a decision on, so.
Sure.
Yeah, and then sometime, I don't know, but I would like to talk to you about that comprehensive plan to see, I'll get a little bit more information or a little more advice from you instead of at the evening here at the thing is like, do I meet you at the waterworks and then you can explain this a bit for me, so, that's the thing.
Also, I understand that, and I'm embarrassed coming in here without a plan to finance it. We talked about that we have to be prepared for that when we get to the next council meeting, and we just didn't get it done. Just, again, the money's in retained earnings, but it's not in the budget.
Yeah, but that's fine, Paul, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't,
I just want
I
you to
don't
know
have
it.
nothing against that, you
Yeah.
doing that or nothing.
Okay.
And the thing is, are we in financial dire straits? Maybe not, but, it's just, at this time, I need a little bit more information, and I'm sure you're going to help me out with that. so,
Sure, I respect that.
Other questions for Brian? Not? Okay, move on. City Administrator's Report, Paul.
Well, on the happy note of being confused with numbers and money, we're at our levy amount. Excuse me. We had a citizen basically point out recent Times article that said that the taxes were going up 18%, and that we presented at the meeting taxes were going up 6.84%. And really what's going on there, for the general citizen's sake, is we have always had the same type of tax calculator that we've reviewed on my 4 years here, and then well before me on Larry Lahr's watch when he was administrator too. And basically within that, we're looking, what we had talked about, we've always looked at is an actual percentage change between the levy rates, which is more of a percentage points rather than a percentage itself. But what we've always presented, honestly and fairly and openly, is how it would affect residential properties. And for example, looking at a home value of $100,000, if nothing else changed, it's basically their valuation stayed exactly the same, they would be looking at an increase of $68.45. So that we had certainly aired and knew about here at the meeting. That difference in a percentage is 18%. Again, you know, when you're looking at dollar amounts and percentage figures and percentage points, sometimes you can go a little kooky on all of the numbers and what's the right numbers, but that is an actual real number. Now, that was an actual real number as a snapshot that when we took this at that time. That was pointed out earlier this meeting by us ending a tax increment financing district. That actually helps then the overall valuation pot, that we can reduce that amount of what actual taxes are being increased by, because now it's going to shift over to commercial. That's usually a lot of times you'll hear Chris and I at certain times of the year or certain times, whatever hat we're wearing, saying TIF is bad because we don't have that tax base. Where TIF is really great is when it goes off the books later on down the line. We have oodles of money coming in. For example, a few years ago, we approved a $4 million TIF for the, it wasn't $4 million TIF, it was a $4 million project for Granite Community Bank, and then that TIF, when that runs out, we'll be getting all of that valuation of their property of $4 million online. So that's the beauty of why we use TIF, is because technically something wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have had a TIF plan to begin with. So, or it would have been a lesser expansion or project if it wasn't for TIF. TIF will be debated till the end of time on whether or not you like it, don't like it, effective, ineffective, necessary, unnecessary, but the fact remains is that when they do go out, that helps our overall tax base and our tax capacity rate. So we need to figure that out now. After tonight, this is being approved. Chris and I need to go back to our calculators and figure out how much exactly will that improve these numbers. We have had in our past a similar type of increase, and that was back in 2012. It was, according to the tax calculator, a 17% increase. Chris and I went to go grab our own personal tax bill, since we both live in the city, and you know, again, it turns into number confusion, but we did not have 17% increase in our taxes, but that was because our valuations actually dropped as properties. So it's tough to gauge in any given year. You know, again, we're telling people very openly and honestly, if your valuation stays exactly the same, yes, it would go up 18%, just the city portion again. So a lot of times people grab their taxes and say, oh my gosh, my whole taxes are going to go up by 18%? No, that we're talking the city portion of that tax bill. And again, that's a rough number, all things being equal. I wish we could bring into this, and I know the chamber has asked for it, what it would be for commercial properties, what kind of changes. And that's even far more complex than the residential ones, unfortunately. And they, thank goodness, actually take the brunt of the residential tax increases. So I know a lot of times we hear from residents, you know, about fixed incomes, and we do our best here in the city to make sure that we're providing the same excellent services and not trying to overtax our residents. But thank goodness for our businesses, especially the brewery, who pays the vast majority of our taxes, that they help shield the rest of the community. As a matter of fact, one thing that we've discovered as we've gone through our wastewater, or our water plans, is that the brewery pays so much in taxes in comparison for the rest of the city that they pay more than Hormel does for the city of Austin or the Mayo Clinic does for the city of Rochester. So again, part of the debate that some folks have of what benefit does the brewery have for us in town, why are we concerned about supporting them? That tax weight that they carry helps anybody who lives in town. So clear as mud, clear as beer.
The actual amount was final in 2014, 977, 739. 2015 is going to be 1164, 705. So what's the budgeting? We're not going, a long ways with that. So some of those numbers too are confusing to me also. That percentage rate and everything. So, and I just have this here. This was the final that we agreed to on that thing. So there was what, $1,100? Is that what the difference was between these from 2014 to 2015?
The difference between 2014 and 2015 is
What's the difference?
it's about $186,966.
Again, Bob, how much?
$186,966.
966.
And if you then do the math, that does work out to that 18 or 19% number that the Times put in the paper. But again, I would like to go back to something that Paul said a minute ago, and make sure that everybody understands. Whenever you're talking about a tax, whether you're talking about a sales tax, income tax, real estate taxes, anytime you're talking about a tax, you take a value times a rate, and that gives you your tax. If you buy a candy bar and you pay $1 for the candy bar, in Minnesota, the sales tax is roughly 7%, so how much is the sales tax? You can figure that out. If you buy a $2 candy bar, you can figure out what the amount will be for the sales tax. But if you buy a $1 candy bar, but the retailer gives you a 15% discount, and then how much is your sales tax? Again, what I'm getting to is it's always a value times the rate equals the tax. What we, the city, have always done, and my understanding is it's because it's mandated by the state, is we're talking about the rate. The value is calculated by the county when they do their assessments and all that kind of stuff. The rate is what we have to set. The rate is what we have to tell the state and Stearns County so that they can do this calculation thing. We have always said we are increasing our rate by, and in this particular case, I think, Paul, the number was 6.84%. So that's the amount we raised the rate. The difference is how much will the value change? And again, we don't have control over that. We don't know what that is. So the best guess we could do, the best calculation we could do, we have made that available, and that's what's out there. But if you do the math, the difference is that $186,000 number. But one of the other things I want to point out and make sure that everybody understands is if you just look at just the general levy itself, not the bond funds, not any of that kind of stuff, the debt repayment, just what we're actually collecting to pay for police, fire, police, fire, streets,
EDA.
just those kinds of things, that increase is much smaller. That increase over a 4-year average is only about 3.5%. So again, that's a 3-year average or 4-year average, but again, the amount that we actually increase just that levy by is not that stark. What has happened is we have a couple of projects, we had to do some street projects, and because of that, we have some more debt payments. So do we have to tax for those? Yes, but are we really raising? Did we give Paul Hessian a whole lot more in his account so that he can spend a whole lot more dollars? What I'm saying is the answer to those questions is no. We really haven't raised that levy dramatically. It's about, over 4 years, it's about 3.5%.
Anything else, Paul?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else on this at all, or?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay. For the rest of my report, basically I have it in written form too, but attended the fifth Monday meeting on September 29th over in Richmond. It was a neat kind of venue. They changed it up by having more of a dinner format and then having each of the groups of tables talk about, Heidi was there, I'm looking at Heidi in the audience, talk about things that the school district is working on, and it was very healthy. Got us all kind of focused in on kind of stuff other than necessarily our issues of the day, but looking at more of what our community issues of the day were. So, neat meeting. The mayor and I attended a meeting with Dan Stile, our EDA director, and Penny Gartland from the Greater St. Cloud Development Corporation, and basically looking at opportunity in the future of joining that organization. They have been incredibly instrumental in our our water quest, basically looking at grant funding and legislative support and things like that. So we will be looking at some kind of a presentation in the future, probably from at least the two of us or the three of us, or having EDA on board with that. We're looking at a point where Patty can come to EDA and talk about it to them, but we were basically sold that it's something that we should do and be a part of. To if you're not in the know, you're out of the know. So we wanted to make sure that we're
Just to piggyback on that, Patty has been invited to the EDA meeting on November 10th, and she's accepted, so she's gonna be at that meeting.
awesome.
And then we could probably have Dan maybe stay afterwards, because our council meeting is that night also. And then we can probably have Dan update us from the EDA side of it.
Great. Thank you.
Should have that by, at our next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Corey Finance Committee meeting, attended that on October 1st. Basically, it's a committee of looking at they kind of took some of our Fifth Monday discussions and went into the kind of the practical realm of it, looking at where the school is going to come with some of its levy authority. It has some small levy authority to increase up to a per pupil amount, I believe, of $724 per pupil amount, if that, does that ring a bell? And basically with that amount that they can help fund our students in Corey, similar to other districts around the state. So it's the legislative equivalent of giving them some of the power that we possibly take for granted, like when we talk about levies. They basically are restricted with all that and always have to go to the people to be able to raise that levy. And ultimately, we want to look at the school district to be able to have, elected officials are elected officials. Right? You should be able to raise that levy without having to go constantly back the voters. The Recorder Trail Construction Board, attended that last Thursday in Rockville. It was probably one of our quickest meetings we've ever had, but that was a good thing, because there's many times where we have crazy long meetings at the Recorder Trail Construction Board. So anyway, we're still plugging away at the big connection between Cold Spring and Rockville as that next step, and just moving forward. Chamber After Hours, attended that last week on Thursday. It was at Granite Countertops. Very neat tour of the plant to be able to see what happens from just bringing in the slabs of granite to finished products for countertops and sinks and you name it out there. Out into the world. So it's kind of neat from the perspective of, at one point, from getting a tour from the Cold Spring plant from Doug on his area to seeing that now over there is kind of can make the connections from refining to further refining those kind of products. So a lot of neat stuff that, again, we probably take for granted that goes on right in our backyard that doesn't really go on anywhere else in the world. So we're not to that level. So, neat little meeting. Last week was also the Sheriff's Forum, sponsored by the League of Minnesota, or League of Women Voters, and neat forum between Sheriff John Sanner and County Commissioner Mark Bromenschenkel. Very civil, so those who like hockey matches, go see hockey. That was not that case. It was a very civil meeting on where the two stood on their issues, and wish them both luck, because it certainly does affect our world at times, on first responses to certainly, from, we used to cover Wakefield Township, we hope to in the future, as I see Heidi out there too, but now that the Sheriff's Office is covering them, there is certainly differences in philosophy with that. So wish them both luck in their campaigns. I had my monthly meeting with Dan Stile, our EDA director, basically discussing a number of things for their meeting coming up. So he keeps in kind of your plan to kind of help reduce maybe some of my meetings. He keeps me going on what's going on in EDA, and we feed off each other that way. So it's nice, healthy gathering. Engineering meetings, as I alluded to before, we basically had a extensive teleconference meeting last week. Paul was a part of that. Brian, were you a part of it? No. I'm sorry, but there was other Stantec. Chip was a part of that, and probably about almost another dozen people involved in that conversation, talking about ways to fund our water project. And we got good news that from the Public Finance Authority, they have are looking at, they would be able to help fund nearly all of what we would be looking at for a project. However, that's a loan, and that loan is looking at as roughly a 1% loan over 20 years. So outside of that, we had asked some very hard questions of like, well, what else can we look forward for grant's sake? And DEED has a program, DEED being the Department of Employment and Economic Development. They have a, and all this is just alphabet soup, but they have a program called the Business Development Infrastructure Program, and they typically only give out grants of up to $500,000, and I know I mentioned this a while ago in a previous report of mine, but I've been a part of one that was $889,000 at one point, and I know the charge was do better, so I'm going to try for $890 at least. But it's I asked that question. I said, now by statute it can actually go up to $1 million, and they said, well, that's true. They kind of hesitated for a second, but they're going to look into to see if they can at least get us up to $1 million in grants for this project. The problem is, too, we're trying to shoot a flea off of a horse's back while it's running. I mean, we don't know exactly what it's going to cost, the whole water plan. That's something Paul works diligently on every single day, but we know it's likely going to cost a lot more than $1 million or a couple $1 million bucks. I mean, we had asked the legislature for $8 million, so it could go upwards to that amount. So getting $1 million in grants is really, really nice, but it's still, again, it's only 1/8 of us getting all the way there. So we're working on that. Also attended another engineering firm's annual event. We do work with SEH through our through the Recorded Trail Construction Board, so certainly keeping up good relations that way. And we'll just have to suggest to Stantec that they need to have an annual event too around October and to compete. So maybe an annual event that takes off some kind of amount off the 35.5, like maybe skip the event and take off a couple thousand, Brian. Right? Anyway, negotiating on a whim. Annexation updates. We have advertised with the Record and sent out notification to Wakefield Township and the adjoining properties for the Golden Plump annexation. That hearing will be held on Monday, November 24th, coming up basically next month. And again, please note that it's just like we're meeting Monday of that week because of Thanksgiving. So.
27?
Here's the 27th on here, 24th.
Yeah, his report says the 27th.
27th is Thanksgiving.
Okay.
26th was supposed to be our meeting date. 24th will be our meeting date.
Okay.
So, I think your report says 27 and it doesn't
Okay.
it? Yeah, and
All right.
that was a little boo-boo on my part. But
No problem.
sent out an email about. Actually, that's it. Last thing I had was budget discussions and covered that already.
Questions for Paul? Good job.
Thank you.
Okay. John, recommendation to approve payments of accounts payable according to the list and supplemental list presented by staff.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. General questions and comments from council. Bob?
One quick thing. Last week, the Cold Spring Chamber of Commerce held a candidate forum. At the candidate forum, parking and the library were topics of great interest. I understand last night there was a Cold Spring EDA meeting to discuss the possible purchase of parking lot space and also a building that could become a real asset for the city of Cold Spring. This morning, I heard that there was a motion made to purchase the parking lots and that asset building, and I'm just wondering if you could just give me one of you could give me an update of what happened last night at the EDA?
You said you heard what, Bob? Repeat what you said you heard this morning?
I had heard that there was a motion made to make a recommendation to buy the 2 parking lots and the building.
Boy, that's a lot different than what I heard at our meeting. Yeah, the EDA met yesterday and kind of like some of the same concerns we had about the fact of EDA owning some more property and possibly not being able to sell that for a long period of time. So actually, the motion last night was a unanimous motion to not purchase the property and when and if the bank is willing to sell the lots, that the EDA would purchase the lots. So it was a unanimous vote not to purchase the property.
Because I thought I had heard that somebody made a motion and then to buy it, and that it died for lack of a second, and then after more discussion, it was approved to not.
You're right on that part. There was a motion to buy it, died for lack of a second, but your comment was that you heard the motion to buy it, and that's what I was responding to, that it wasn't that it was a unanimous decision not to, by the EDA, not to pursue purchasing the building and the lots, and then if and when the bank would ever be willing to sell the lots, they would look into buying the lots for parking. That's what came out of the EDA last night.
And can I ask, so the EDA decided that we don't need the parking, we don't want the parking, can I understand?
Well, they totally agree with the parking, that we need the parking. Their concern again was buying the bank building and then having to sit on it for a year, and the comment was even maybe 10 years. And we've already saw this year our bond rating go down, and part of it is the business park up there that the EDA has a lot of money stuck into, and not selling lots, being able to sell lots, and they didn't want to compound that more by possibly having another building. So again, it was a unanimous vote 4-0 to not purchase the property at this point, and wait and see if the bank is willing to, once they sell the bank building,
Pursue the lot.
to pursue the lots. And that question was asked by one of the bank executives, if they would be willing to sell those, and he said most certainly. So the plan is hopefully to buy those 2 lots for parking, because the EDA definitely is on board with the parking. They're not on board with owning another piece of property or getting into the market of buying and selling land. So that's what came out of the EDA last night. Other questions or comments from anybody? No, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.